when they're no longer in their body. How can one go and find them when they aren't in time and space anymore? And if we do reach out, how can we know that we are actually connecting with them rather than our idea or image of them?
Well, first of all, they're right here. It's just that they're in a different vibrational frequency. So the idea is that everything is here and now, including the spirit world. So they're right here with you. Now, that doesn't mean that they're always paying attention, but the idea is that it simply takes a slight shift in frequency for them to be aware, to connect with you when you send them any kind of message, be it verbal, emotional, or a thought. You are connecting. They do receive it. You may not always receive what they send you back. You may not always be paying attention or be of the correct frequency, or your thoughts or beliefs may be getting in the way of receiving their message clearly, but they are always sending love and encouragement. And if you allow yourself to know that and be of that same frequency of love and connection, then just the very idea that you wish to connect lets you know that you are connecting. You just have to allow yourself to clear yourself out of any ideas, thoughts, or belief systems that would make it seem difficult to receive what they send you, and also pay attention to the synchronicity in your life, since that is often an easier way for spirits to get a message across to you. But again, they always receive. Now, whether it is your own thoughts or not, as long as you pay attention to the idea that what you are receiving, even from your own higher mind, or from the thought patterns within your physical mind, as long as they are encouraging, connective, expansive, positive in that sense, then you can rest assured that they are, at the very least, in harmony with the kinds of messages and thoughts that spirits would send to you. If there is any fear in them, anything that diminishes you, anything that negatively judges you, anything in that sense that feels disconnected, you are probably dealing with your own fear-based beliefs or a negative ego echo. So it's about the energy, the way in which the connection or message or information makes you feel, and that will assure you that you are making a connection in a positive way to the spirits, whether you are capable of literally perceiving their message or not.
Okay, thank you. Please enlighten us regarding the relationship between capturing orb images with digital cameras and the etheric realm. Are these orbs conscious entities? And if so, are they trying to communicate with us? What is it that they're trying to communicate with us? And is it necessary to use a certain type of flash mechanism for an orb image to appear?
Many devices on your planet, such as digital cameras, are simply capable of picking up certain frequencies that your eyes do not commonly see. The orbs can be many things. They can be probes from another dimension, in which case they wouldn't necessarily be conscious. They would be more like mechanisms made of energy, constructs designed for certain purposes of gathering information. But in its natural state, a spirit will usually return to the shape of an orb. It doesn't necessarily project what you would recognize as a bodily image when it's in its natural state, though it can do so. It can shift into that form if necessary. So sometimes the orbs will be representative of spirits that may just be around you all the time, or may be coming and going. And if you are sensitive enough to perceive them, or your devices are sensitive enough to perceive them, they don't necessarily always have a message for you. You may just be perceiving what is around all the time and breaking through that barrier that allows you to perceive that they are always here, just on a different frequency.
Can you tell us what ghosts are made of? And you've said that they are on the etheric shell of the shell's birth. So is there like a ghostly periodic table of elements within their shell? And are ghosts made of different materials on different planets?
The idea is that these shells are quite common on many different planets and would be very similar in terms of a ghost on one planet or a ghost on another. There may be some slight differences depending upon the vibrational frequencies that are necessary for beings to perceive them or for them to express themselves in different cultures and different civilizations and different worlds and dimensions. But the idea in general is to understand that everything that you think of as an element in your physical reality, your so-called periodic table, also have energy components, non-physical components. Remember, as above, so below. Everything has a non-physical template that allows the physical template to base itself upon. So the idea is that it may not be as many elements necessary to be expressed energetically in ghostly material, but overall, it is simply a refined version of physical matter. In other words, the idea of physical reality is a densification of the idea of what we call electromagnetic energy. Therefore, it can have a more refined, higher vibratory representation, or it can have a denser, more crystallized representation that you would recognize as physical matter, and any level in between. So the idea of a ghost appearing physically, or even to some degree to your senses, even transparently, would simply be a dialing down of the frequency, a lowering of the frequency of the same material you're made of in general, maybe with not as many components. But the idea is that you all are made of electromagnetic energy. It is kind of the idea that is recognized or labeled as ectoplasm when it is of a certain frequency densification. And to strengthen that densification would render it down into physical matter, would take on more corporeal elements that are designed to represent itself as a dense crystallization depending upon the elements that are involved. But the idea is that it's all kind of the same matter at different density levels. Again, by a crude analogy, much the same as the idea of ice and water, liquid water and steam are all the same element, just at different frequencies. So it's sort of similar to that idea. In this case, to some degree, better that it was done with a spirit than with a living person, where the consequences might have been even more drastic. But by being able to actually feel the spirit physically push you, you may have been given a chance to change your behavior without it necessarily affecting a physical person who would be more affected by it than the spirit was. And the spirit in that sense may simply have been demonstrating something without necessarily taking it personally.
But generally, the fact that they're in spirit means that they will have certainly the capability of experiencing what you're saying at a higher level.
Yes, and again, they may not have experienced it personally at all. It may simply have been a lesson being taught.
Interesting. This person is saying, my grandfather can see ghosts for about 1 year now, usually at nighttime, sometimes in the afternoon, and almost every night. He doesn't want to sleep. He wants to chase them away. They look at him, but don't talk. When he tries to reach them, they press something on their chest and disappear. Who are they?
These are not ghosts. These are interdimensional beings. So the idea may be that he senses that they're from somewhere else. They may feel quite alien to him. He may not be comfortable around them, simply because he may not be comfortable with the differences that they represent. The fact that they're pressing their chests indicates to some degree that they're using a type of technology, which a ghost would not need to do. A ghost would simply vanish. So this is more the behavior of interdimensional beings that are connected to that person and attempting perhaps to remind him of his connection to them which he may not be in a place to acknowledge at this particular point because of whatever belief systems he's holding on to. But it might be a way of goading him into exploring these things rather than chasing them away.
So as people get older also, particularly, let's say they're in the 5-year range of when they might pass or something like that, will this ability be more accessible if that person realizes it, to be able to connect or see ghosts and things like that?
If they realize, yes. It can happen, or it doesn't have to, but yes, it's quite possible that as you approach the idea of crossing the threshold from physical to non-physical reality, that your senses may start connecting to the other side, and you may be more acutely aware of the fact that other beings in spirit are connecting to you.
Could it potentially be similar to the idea of the way cats can be just sitting there and suddenly they're staring at watching something that appears to be from another dimension?
Yeah.
It might manifest that way?
Yes.
And how, if you haven't already answered this maybe in detail, how can an entity or ghost move things around and turn things on like a faucet or a stove?
Again, a densification of the vibration of the entity can bring them closer to the vibration of physical reality, and therefore within a range in which they can actually interact with denser physical material, because they have densified their own vibration to be sufficiently close to that frequency of physical reality to be able to manipulate physical objects.
Okay. This person has a question about ghosts who don't know they're ghosts. Can you elaborate on the people who pass who don't know they're ghosts? And does this happen to animals too? What is the best ceremony or blessing we can do to guide them and honor them in a way that assists them towards their highest good? And what does your society do to honor your loved ones once they've been elevated?
It is extremely rare that animals would experience that. Extremely rare, and for very specific reasons only. The idea is, again, if someone has a certain belief system that is in denial about the existence of an afterlife, it may be strong enough to prevent them from realizing that they're dead, but not for very, very long in terms of the idea of time as you know it. Because they will always have assistance from the other side to realize that their condition has changed and that they are capable of moving forward. So it's a temporary thing that can be helped both from the non-physical and the physical side if you connect to a spirit and encourage them to look around and explore and understand that their frequency has changed, that they've gone into a non-material world, so to speak. Again, this is the original purpose of what has been misunderstood and devolved into the concept of exorcism. It's simply ghost psychology, where you understand that someone is maybe having a difficult time because of their earthly belief systems in crossing over fully. But again, this is still, especially in this day and age, relatively rare. The reason why people may interact with ghosts, in many cases, is far beyond the idea now of the ghosts themselves not knowing that they're dead. So there are many other reasons and purposes for these interactions or for people perceiving them. Messages and so on that need to be delivered. Yes, a little bit of unfinished business, but again, this doesn't really take very long. Although sometimes a psychically sensitive person can help them with this by delivering messages to the living that allows the ghosts, the spirits, to know that the message has been delivered so they can move on. But again, in the overall population, this is relatively rare. But animals have very little reason to experience the idea. Perhaps an animal that has been severely physically abused might experience this momentarily. But again, an animal is much more connected to the idea of spirit and much more capable of immediately awakening into their natural state. Again, they may stick around for the purpose of interacting with a human that may need their assistance or their reflection, but that has nothing to do specifically with the animal's ability to know that it is dead.
And if some spirits don't realize that they've died, did they experience life review upon death?
In many cases, no. Or they may have experienced it as a dream, thinking that they're still alive and simply dreaming, or daydreaming, or hallucinating. But in some cases, no. They're not yet at that threshold where they have the awareness to recognize what it is they're experiencing as a life review. They may simply think that they're sort of stuck on a memory.
So basically, you can delay your life review by refusing to move towards the light or move into spirit fully?
Again, this is relatively rare, but yes, to some degree it's possible. The examples of the idea you call near-death experience and fully dying provide an illustration for this. Because the idea is that when people have a near-death experience, when they're not going to remain dead, they will usually have the life review sooner than a person who actually dies, because then they don't have to rush, because they're going to come back. They're not going to come back, so they don't have to have the life review right away. But the people that are going to return in a near-death experience will usually have some degree of life review more quickly than those who truly pass on.
Interesting. And what about those individuals that perpetrate great evil on Earth in the sense of murder, mayhem, etc.? And I know that you had referred one time to Hitler having to sort of be put on ice in order to, I guess, integrate.
An energetic buffer is created to allow the being to go through what may seem to be the traumatic experience of the life review, because remember, in life review, there are no barriers. The cause and effect are all happening within you, and you experience everything from every point of view, including the people that were affected by the choices and the actions that you took. So you're experiencing those things as if you are that person being affected by your choices. And to a soul, that can be, to some degree, a traumatic experience, especially at the level that certain individuals may have perpetrated those kinds of negative actions. So a kind of cocoon or buffer is created. This is what is meant by being put on ice, to allow the soul to absorb these experiences and learn from them in a way that will benefit them, so that they can make different choices from that point forward.
And when you say that the cause and effect, suppose they're in a position where they are telling other people to do things, and further down the chain, the actual actions that are so heinous are taking place.
Everything is connected. Everything is connected. Remember, time and space are illusions to some degree, even though they're real as experiences. But any ripple whatsoever that has any kind of an effect is experienced by those who have any connection to it, to whatever degree they have the connection to it.
So in the average person's transition and life review, they will experience the ripple effect of everything that they've done in their entire life, or only the ones that are really relevant for a learning experience?
Everything, but the ones that are truly relevant for a learning experience that is specific to them will stand out in certain ways. But beings experience literally every single second of the physical life. Again, some things will stand out more than others, but that doesn't mean they don't experience them. Even the absence of something that is the result of some action they took will be experienced by them.
And yet, since the timeline for things to be experienced while you're in spirit as opposed to being physical is different, what kind of a time does it take, or how much time does it take, in a sense, to go through a life review?
As your Einstein said, it's all relative. What to you may seem to be something that took years, may be experienced in the blink of an eye to the spirit in a life review. But it may seem to them that they're reliving the entire life as well. You have to understand that time is a funny thing, because it is a subjective idea. and a relative idea. So the things that stand out as important may feel like they're taking more time to a spirit because of their importance and the need to focus on them, when in fact it may really be taking almost no time at all. So it's really completely subjective, and you cannot really make a measurement between physical and non-physical reality as to the amount of time that some experience actually takes. It's all absolutely subjective in spirit.
And also the idea that you're multi-functioning, so can many aspects of the life be happening simultaneously in your review, or it would appear more linear?
Again, it depends on what it is you need to focus on, what it is that gives you the lesson that you're attempting to extract. It can be experienced absolutely in the blink of an eye on every level simultaneously, or it can seem to stretch out depending on what you need.
And for those beings that choose to incarnate into what will ultimately be some sort of evil iconic spirit or evil iconic person, a figurehead that then wreaks havoc and destruction upon others, why would a spirit choose that? Or do they know going in that they're going to go through all these things you've just discussed as a result of making the choice to be that individual?
Like any question of this nature, it depends upon the being, and it depends upon the purpose. There is the possibility that beings, as you know, can forget who they are, can get caught up in certain things in physical reality that prevent them from having more awareness and allowing them to act out in negative ways. It can also go through the entire spectrum, all the way up to, I'm going to play this role because of what it's going to do to awaken the consciousness of those who are affected by it. It really depends on the situation. It depends on the being. These are individual things, and you have to, again, as always, take it on a case-by-case basis.
So, for example, with Hitler, did he know before he came that he was going to play that role?
This is a tricky question to answer because there are so many levels to the being itself, a small part of which your history knew as Hitler in your particular parallel reality. So again, I can say yes and no.
Okay.